Emily and I met at the DMV. Not exactly romantic, but that's the truth. I was renewing my license and she was working the front counter, hair pulled back, tapping through the line with this no-nonsense focus. When it was my turn, I made some offhand joke about government efficiency, and she didn't laugh. Not right away. She just looked at me like she wasn't sure if I was being serious, and then cracked a small smile and handed me a clipboard. That was how it started. We ran into each other again a few days later at a neighborhood bar, mutual friends, same group. After that, things moved quickly. She had a directness about her, always had. If she liked you, you knew. If she didn't, you didn't last long around her. I liked that. I'd dated women before who were more polite than honest. Emily didn't play that game. We got married 3 years later. Small ceremony, nothing flashy. She wore a simple dress and didn't cry once. I did. Not a breakdown, just one of those moments when the vows hit harder than I expected. My brother made a toast that got half the room laughing and the other half pretending not to tear up. We didn't have a honeymoon. We couldn't afford it. But we said we'd go somewhere big for our 10-year. That was the deal. Emily worked in outpatient care, then shifted to private pediatric nursing. I stayed in commercial contracting. I wasn't passionate about it, but I was good at it, and it paid well enough. We bought a small place 2 years into the marriage. 1 floor, 2 bedrooms, older kitchen, but it had a fenced yard and a clean foundation. I renovated it room by room when I had time. Emily picked the paint colors and I did the labor. It worked. Leo was born in our 4th year. The quiet type. Observant, slow to speak, fast to move. Emily was better with babies than I was. She had that calm tone, even when he was screaming at 2 a.m. I just stood there like a statue holding a bottle and trying not to break anything. 2 years after Leo came Mia. She was loud from day one. Lungs like a fire alarm and already stubborn by the time she could walk. She took after Emily more than Leo did, same eyes, same way of saying no without raising her voice. I liked seeing the 3 of them together. It gave the house its own pace. We made time for each other when we could. Most nights were dinner, cleanup, bath time, and an hour of quiet before we passed out on the couch. Weekends meant errands, backyard time, birthday parties, laundry. But it was ours. It was normal. I liked our life. There was nothing missing. Our mornings were pretty much clockwork. Emily would be up first, not because she had to be, but because she liked the quiet. She'd start the coffee, pack Leo's lunch, scroll through her phone while the water boiled for oatmeal. I usually came down 10 minutes later, already dressed for work, and would find her at the counter, hair pulled back, sipping from her favorite mug, the chipped one with the blue stripe she refused to throw out. Leo dragged his feet every morning. He hated socks and always claimed his backpack felt weird. Mia was the opposite. She'd be in the kitchen before either of us, already talking, already digging through drawers she had no business being in. Emily handled the chaos. I handled the drop-offs. After I dropped them off at school and daycare, I'd hit the site, usually a renovation project or a commercial bid. My job wasn't glamorous, but it was solid. Deadlines, materials, subcontractors, permits. I liked checking boxes, hitting goals, seeing something physical get built from the ground up. Emily said she liked that about me, that I didn't talk circles, I just got things done. She worked 3 days a week in pediatric home care. Some days she came back wiped out, especially after dealing with the tougher families. But she never brought the stress home. She had a way of flipping the switch when she stepped inside the door. I don't think I ever saw her take a bad day out on the kids, not once. Dinners were usually at the table. We weren't big on screens during meals. Mia had a thing for spaghetti, so we saw a lot of that. Leo would dissect his food and eat it in parts, one thing at a time, like it was a lab experiment. I'd cook maybe twice a week, mostly when Emily had longer shifts. The rest of the time, she handled it. Simple meals. Always warm. Bedtime was its own marathon. Mia insisted on 3 stories, no fewer. Leo wanted the same blanket, same lullaby, same position of the nightlight. I used to think routines were boring. Now I saw them as structure. Predictability. Something they'd remember years from now without even realizing it. After the kids were down, we had our hour. Sometimes we'd talk. Sometimes we just shared the same space, her on the couch with a book, me finishing emails or zoning out with a game. It wasn't romantic every night. It wasn't fireworks. But it was consistent. And that counted for something. We didn't take big trips often. Just small weekends away when we could. Emily liked the coast. I liked the mountains. So we rotated. Every few years we'd talk about saving up for something bigger, Europe, maybe, or something tropical. But time and money always got in the way. There were always school costs, home repairs, or someone getting sick the week we were supposed to go. Still, we talked about it. We always said the 10-year would be different. And we meant it. Emily always handled the planning. She kept a spiral notebook on the kitchen counter with to-do lists and meal plans, birthday party reminders, and notes scribbled in the margins about things like replace the smoke detector batteries, or email me as teacher. I used to tease her about it, but I relied on it more than I admitted. She was organized in a way that kept our house from falling apart. I kept us on time, on budget, on task. It worked. The kids had their routines, and we followed them without question. Mondays were after-school gymnastics for Mia. Thursdays meant Leo's music club, even if he barely touched the keyboard when he got there. Emily coordinated carpool schedules with other parents and always remembered which kid needed to bring snacks that week. I handled homework when I could, not because I was better at it, but because I had more patience for the repetition. Our weekends had their own rhythm. Saturdays started with pancakes. Leo helped mix the batter and spilled flour across the counter. Mia always broke at least one egg on the floor. Emily cleaned it all up without blinking. After breakfast, she'd take Mia to her dance class while I took Leo to the hardware store or the park. We'd reconvene around noon, and from there, it was errands, house stuff, or backyard play if the weather allowed. We didn't go out much. Maybe once a month we'd find a sitter and grab dinner at a restaurant nearby, nothing upscale. Emily didn't care for fancy. She liked booths, dim lighting, and places that served bread without asking. We'd sit across from each other, usually too tired to get through a full bottle of wine, but we made the time. We laughed. We caught up on the things we couldn't say with 2 kids bouncing around the house. She still surprised me sometimes. Little things. A note in my lunch bag. A new candle in the bathroom. Tickets to a concert I'd mentioned once in passing. I didn't say it every day, but I appreciated it. I kept a folder in my phone of random photos, Emily asleep on the couch with Mia curled up on her chest, Leo balancing blocks on his head, all 4 of us squeezed into a corner booth at a diner with terrible lighting. It wasn't curated. It was just our life. We didn't have drama. No big fights. When we argued, it was about normal stuff. Whose turn it was to empty the dishwasher. Why I hadn't fixed the porch light. Nothing that lingered. Nothing that ever felt like it could crack the foundation. We were 10 years in, and things were steady. Not flashy. Not perfect. But full. Built. Lived in. We were in a good place. That's why the trip made sense. Not as a fix, but as a celebration. The idea for the anniversary trip started with Emily. She brought it up in passing while we were folding laundry one night, a quiet, almost casual suggestion. 10 years, she said. We should go somewhere. Just us. I agreed before she finished the sentence. We hadn't been away together in years. Our last real trip as a couple had been before Mia was born. Since then, it was family cabins, visits to in-laws, or long weekends jammed with activities. This time, we wanted something different. Not kid-friendly. Not practical. Just something that felt like time off from everything. Emily found the place, a small island resort, tucked away in the Caribbean. She read the reviews out loud at the table one night while Mia smeared peanut butter on her face and Leo pretended not to hear us. Private villas, ocean views, adults only, she said. Quiet. No kids. No distractions. It sounded perfect. We booked it that week. My sister agreed to take the kids for the full stretch, 7 days, door to door. She was excited. Leo and Mia were too. They loved her house. Backyard trampoline. The dog. A pantry full of things Emily never let them eat. We spent the next few weeks getting everything lined up. Emily handled the packing lists. I rearranged my project schedule so I wouldn't get bombarded while we were gone. We picked up a new set of luggage, ordered swimsuits that weren't 6 years old, and updated our passports. It was the most organized we'd been for anything in a long time. The night before we left, we put the kids to bed early and finished folding the last of the clothes. Emily poured 2 glasses of wine and sat on the edge of the couch while I zipped up the bags. Feels weird, she said. Going away without them. Yeah, I said. But it'll be good. She smiled, leaned her head on my shoulder, and said, we deserve it. I didn't argue. We left early the next morning. The kids were half asleep when we hugged them goodbye, wrapped in blankets and yawning in the driveway. Emily kissed their foreheads and whispered something I didn't catch. I started the car. The airport was calm. Security smooth. Our flight left on time. We landed just after noon. The air was warm, thick with salt. The kind of heat that slowed everything down in the best way. A shuttle met us at the airport, offered us cold towels and bottled water. Emily looked out the window the whole ride to the resort, sunglasses pushed into her hair, her eyes fixed on the water. This is exactly what we needed, she said once we pulled into the property. Palm trees swayed above the entrance. A stone path curved between bungalows. Everything was open air, soft music playing somewhere, the smell of citrus and wood polish drifting through the lobby. They handed us champagne while we checked in. The man at the front desk greeted Emily by name. The villa was better than the photos. White walls, wide windows, and dark wood floors that creaked a little in a comforting way. The balcony looked out over the ocean, nothing but blue water and sky stretching past the horizon. The bathroom had one of those oversized tubs built into the floor, and the minibar was stocked with glass bottles instead of plastic. Emily walked through every room, running her hand across the counter, opening drawers, checking every light switch like she was memorizing it. We dropped our bags, changed, and walked down to the beach. There weren't many people. Just the sound of waves, the hum of the wind through palm leaves, and the slow movement of staff in white shirts and name tags. That first night, we ate outside under string lights at the resort restaurant. Candlelight flickered across our table, and Emily ordered grilled fish and a second glass of wine without looking at the menu. We talked like we used to before the kids, not about responsibilities or bills, just each other. I watched her twirl her hair around her finger while she talked and thought, this is what I missed. Just being here. Just her. The next morning we took a kayak out together. I didn't know what I was doing, but she steered us easily through the shallow water, pointing out fish beneath us and laughing when I splashed her by accident. We laid out afterward, side by side on lounge chairs, not saying much. Just letting the sun warm our legs. On the second day, we booked a massage. Side-by-side tables, soft music playing above us. The whole thing felt like something from a magazine we used to flip through and say, maybe someday. Emily looked at me afterward and said, I didn't realize how much I needed this. That night, we had a late dinner and fell asleep early, the kind of deep, heavy sleep that only happens when you're far from home and your phone isn't buzzing. Day 3, everything still seemed fine. We had breakfast out on the balcony. Emily wore a wrap dress I hadn't seen before, something loose and light, the kind of thing she never wore back home. She looked happy. Relaxed. We made plans to go snorkeling in the afternoon and stop by the resort shop afterward to grab something for the kids. Around midday, she said she wanted to walk the grounds alone for a bit and take some pictures. I told her I'd meet her at the pool later. She kissed my cheek and disappeared around the corner path. I stayed on the lounge chair, eyes closed, not thinking about anything. But by the time I saw her again, nearly 2 hours later, something felt different. I couldn't explain it. She smiled the same. Talked the same. Sat beside me with her drink like nothing was off. But I couldn't ignore the way her eyes shifted when I asked how her walk went. She said, peaceful. That was all. And something about that felt rehearsed. The next day started like the others, warm breeze through the windows, the ocean rustling just beyond the trees. Emily got up before me and took her coffee out onto the balcony. I watched her from the bed, her back to me, hair pulled up, one hand resting on the rail. It looked like a perfect moment. But I didn't feel settled. She was quiet that morning. Not cold, not distant. Just quiet. We went down to breakfast, and she scrolled her phone while waiting for her food, something she rarely did on vacation. I didn't say anything. I just watched. After we ate, I suggested we go into town, maybe explore the small shops near the marina. Emily hesitated. Why don't you go, she said. I could use a little time to myself. I might get a massage or read by the pool. It wasn't unusual. We weren't attached at the hip. But there was a pause in her voice that didn't sit right. Like she was carefully choosing something. I shrugged it off. All right, I said. I'll be back in a couple hours. Town was small and built for tourists, open-air shops, hand-carved jewelry, overpriced beach clothes. I wandered through a bookstore, picked up a small bracelet for Mia, and texted a picture of a ridiculous parrot keychain to Emily as a joke. She didn't reply. When I got back, I found her by the pool, laying on a lounge chair with sunglasses on and a drink beside her. She smiled and waved, her voice light, cheerful. Find anything good? Couple things for the kids, I said. She sat up, adjusted her wrap. Good. They'll like that. We walked back to the villa. She talked about getting room service for lunch. I nodded. But as we passed the front lobby, I noticed the receptionist glance up, the same guy who checked us in, and his eyes lingered on Emily for a second too long. She didn't look at him. She didn't even flinch. But something about the exchange, or lack of one, made my skin prickle. Later, I realized she'd changed clothes again. She'd worn something different at breakfast, and now she was back in the same wrap from the day before. She said the breeze made her cold and she wanted to layer. It was a harmless explanation. The kind people say without thinking twice. But I was thinking now. In the afternoon, I took a nap. When I woke up, Emily wasn't there. I walked out to the balcony, looked around the resort paths. Empty. 10 minutes later, the door opened behind me. She walked in holding a book, barefoot, with sand on her calves. Where were you? I asked. Just down by the water. I found a quiet spot. Her tone was soft. Normal. Still, I nodded too slowly. She kissed the top of my head as she passed, and for the first time on the trip, I didn't kiss her back. By the time we hit the halfway point of the trip, something about the air between us had changed. I couldn't name it. Nothing obvious. We were still eating together, still talking, still waking up tangled in the same sheets. But small moments kept catching me off guard. Emily had always been someone who moved with intent. She never lingered where she didn't want to be, never faked enthusiasm, never bothered pretending. That was one of the things I loved about her. But now there were pauses in her sentences, longer silences between topics. When I asked her something simple, like what she wanted to do that day, or whether she wanted to book the snorkeling trip, she'd hesitate, just a fraction too long. We spent the morning lying out near the quieter side of the beach. She wore that black wrap I hadn't seen before the trip. Her sunglasses covered most of her face, and she spent more time scrolling through her phone than looking at the water. I didn't say anything. I tried to ignore how often she was tapping, swiping, locking the screen, only to unlock it again a minute later. She kept the screen tilted away from me, but I tried not to read into it. When we went back to the villa to shower before dinner, she said she wanted to rest. I told her I'd go down to the bar and grab a drink. "Take your time," she said, already halfway into the bedroom. At the bar, I sat alone and watched the resort move around me. Couples ordering drinks, a group laughing near the pool, a few staff members gliding between tables with trays balanced like second nature. I glanced back toward the path to our villa more than once, half expecting to see her walking toward me, smiling, waving me over. She never showed. When I got back to the room, the door was locked from the inside. I knocked softly. After a pause, she answered in a towel, hair damp. "Hey," she said, stepping aside. "Sorry, I lost track of time." I nodded. "It's fine." Her robe was folded neatly on the chair. Her phone sat charging, face down. I asked if she was okay. "Yeah," she said. "Just tired." She changed into a dress, tied her hair back, and asked if I still wanted to eat at the seafood place. I said sure. We walked there in near silence, and I kept waiting for her to say something that would make it all feel normal again. But she didn't. At dinner, she asked questions. Talked. Laughed at one point. But none of it felt connected. It felt like watching someone read from a script, one she had memorized a long time ago, word for word. We went to bed early. She fell asleep fast. I didn't. I lay there staring at the ceiling, trying to put a shape to what I was feeling. There wasn't anything I could call evidence. Nothing I could point to. But whatever it was, it had settled into the room with us. And I couldn't ignore it anymore. Day 5 started quiet. The sky was overcast, the kind of weather that made everything feel still. I woke up before Emily and just lay there, staring at the ceiling fan spinning above us. I wasn't thinking about anything in particular, but something in my chest felt heavy. Not dread exactly. Just pressure. Like I was holding my breath and had been for longer than I realized. She stirred a few minutes later, rolled over, and smiled like nothing was off. "You're already up?" she asked. "Couldn't sleep." She reached for my hand under the blanket, squeezed it. "We should go for a walk after breakfast." "Yeah. Sounds good." We ate at the usual spot by the water. Emily wore that same wrap, the one she'd worn twice already this week, and pulled her hair into a loose braid. She ordered fruit and coffee, browsed through the brochure on the table, and circled something with her finger. "There's a garden tour at noon," she said. "Want to check it out?" "Sure." She smiled, then looked past me toward the lobby. I turned to follow her gaze, but by the time I did, she was already back on her phone, scrolling again. Her thumb moved faster than usual. I tried to shake the tension off. I told myself I was overthinking. But even then, it didn't sit right. The way she kept looking toward the front desk. The way she touched her hair when she thought I wasn't watching. It didn't match the woman I knew. Back at the villa, I offered to run down to the resort store and pick up a bottle of wine for dinner. We'd made reservations at the private terrace dining area, something we'd talked about since booking the trip. She lit up when I mentioned it, said she'd start getting ready. I grabbed my wallet and left. It was a short walk. 5 minutes at most. The store was small, just a few shelves of wine, snacks, tourist gear. I picked a red she liked and grabbed a bag of cashews for the room. The cashier moved slow, humming something under his breath. I stepped back out into the path, wine in hand, the breeze a little cooler than it had been all week. I turned the corner toward our villa, and stopped. Just ahead, near the entrance to the building that housed the guest services offices, stood Emily. She was with the hotel manager, the same man who'd checked us in. His hand was on her lower back. Light, familiar. She wasn't pulling away. She was smiling. Leaning in. Her body angled toward him, not like a guest asking a question, but like someone who knew the conversation already. Something passed between them, not words, not even movement, just a kind of stillness that told me everything. Then he reached up and tucked a strand of her hair behind her ear. And she let him. I stood there, far enough away that they hadn't seen me, close enough that I could feel the heat rise behind my eyes. I didn't say anything. I turned around, walked back the way I came, and took the long path around the other side of the resort, the wine bottle clutched so tight in my hand I thought the neck might snap. Back at the villa, I set the bottle on the table. She came in 10 minutes later, humming softly. "Everything okay?" she asked. I nodded once. "Yeah. Just tired." She didn't ask anything else. And I didn't offer. But I wasn't tired. I was done. She took her time getting ready for dinner that night. I sat out on the balcony while she showered, staring at the horizon with the same thought circling my head like a dog chasing its tail. You saw what you saw. Not maybe. Not could have been. It was real. Her face. Her body language. That smile. His hand. The way she didn't flinch, didn't pull away. It hadn't been a misunderstanding. It had been a moment meant for someone else. When she stepped out of the bathroom, towel wrapped around her hair, she asked, "What time is the reservation again?" I didn't answer right away. 7, I finally said. She nodded, already sifting through her suitcase for a dress. I stood, went to the closet, pulled out mine. We walked to dinner like it was any other night. The host seated us at a private table tucked into a corner of the terrace. The ocean was black glass beneath the moon. A candle flickered between us. She talked about the garden tour like it had been just another afternoon. I barely heard her. Every word that left her mouth passed through me like mist. When the food came, I picked at mine. She ate slowly, like she didn't want the night to end. I watched her fork turn in her hand and thought, "You really don't know I saw you." The moment dessert was cleared, I excused myself. "I'm going to head back first," I said, standing. She looked up, surprised. "You okay?" "Yeah. Just tired." She smiled gently. "I won't be long." I walked straight past our villa. Back to the front desk. The receptionist greeted me. "Good evening, sir. Can I help you?" "I need a cab to the airport," I said. He blinked. "You're leaving tonight?" "Right now." He nodded. "I can have one here in 10 minutes. "Good." I went back to the villa just long enough to grab my things. One bag. That's all I'd brought. I didn't even look at the bed. I didn't leave a note. I didn't slam a door. I just walked out into the warm night air, hearing the waves behind me like static. She texted me while I was in the cab. "Where'd you go?" "I'm back at the room." "Everything okay?" I turned my phone off. At the airport, I bought the next available flight home. I landed just after sunrise. Took a cab straight from the airport to our house. Walked inside, opened every closet, every drawer. I didn't pack her things. I threw them out. All of it. Clothes, shoes, makeup, perfume. Her books. Her extra phone charger. The scarf she loved. Trash bags full, one after another. Tossed into the alley bin with shaking hands and a jaw so tight it hurt to breathe. By noon, I was at my lawyer's office. Told him everything. I filed for divorce on the spot. No waiting. No discussion. I gave him her full name, the name of the hotel, and the date. I told him to contact the resort. I wanted to sue them. Their employee. For what I'd seen, what I'd experienced. For emotional distress, public humiliation, betrayal on company property. He said we had a case. I said, good. Then I called my sister and told her the kids were staying with me, permanently. And that their mother wouldn't be coming home. Emily landed 2 days later. I didn't tell her I was gone. I didn't leave her a message, didn't cancel the reservation, didn't send a warning. She found out the hard way, walking into the villa alone and realizing her husband had vanished without a word. I imagined the look on her face. The way her stomach must have dropped. I wanted her to feel that. She called. 10 times. Then 20. I never picked up. Then came the texts. Where are you? Why would you do this? Call me, please. What's going on? I read every one. Then I blocked her number. When she landed back in our city, it wasn't to our house. I'd changed the locks. She didn't have a key anymore anyway, I tossed it along with everything else. When she arrived, suitcase in hand, she must have seen the garbage bins already full, lids half open, pieces of her old life barely hidden beneath black plastic. She banged on the door for 5 full minutes. I watched from the upstairs window, unmoving. Eventually, she left. Her friends didn't take her in. Not after what I told them. Not after they heard why. I sent screenshots. Descriptions. Time. Place. I wasn't malicious. I was factual. The truth did enough damage on its own. Her family. They were stunned. Her sister called to ask what happened. I told her exactly what I saw. I told her to ask Emily how long it had been going on. I didn't scream. I didn't rage. I just answered the question. Word got around fast. No one sided with her. No one defended the decision she made on the 5th night of her anniversary trip. People can forgive mistakes. They don't forgive calculated betrayal. I focused on the kids. Leo didn't ask where she was. Mia did, once. I told her mommy had gone away for a little while, and that daddy would be here every day. They didn't cry. That hurt more than it should have. The house felt lighter. Clean. Everything that reminded me of her was gone. Her toothbrush. Her mug. Her smell on the pillows. Her handwriting on the calendar. All of it, erased. The lawsuit moved forward. The resort tried to push back at first, said it was a private matter. My lawyer sent over the employee logs, the footage, the guest reports. We had screenshots. Testimony from staff. And eventually, the silence on their end turned into a settlement offer. They paid. Not because they wanted to, because they had to. It wasn't about the money. It was about the record. The acknowledgement. Emily sent an email a week later from an address I didn't recognize. Just 4 lines. I lost everything. I have nowhere to go. I never meant for this to happen. Please let me see the kids. I didn't respond. You don't get to see the kids when you abandon them for a man whose name you didn't even learn. You don't get your life back when you sell it for a single night. The divorce finalized quicker than I expected. No contest. No drawn-out hearings. No teary courtroom scenes. Just paperwork, signatures, and a quiet ruling in my favor. Full custody. No visitation for the time being. The judge read the documentation, the evidence, and didn't have much to say. There wasn't much to argue. Emily didn't fight it. Whether out of guilt, exhaustion, or because she knew she had no ground to stand on, she signed everything and disappeared from the process without a word. I hadn't seen her since the day she landed back in the country. That was months ago now. I don't know where she went. Last I heard, she'd been staying in a friend's apartment, not one of ours, someone from her nursing program, maybe. A few weeks later, that fell through. Word got around she was sleeping on someone's couch. After that, nothing. No address. No job updates. Nothing on social. Her old accounts went dark. Like she vanished. Sometimes I wonder if she thought about it in those early mornings, the way she used to sit with coffee in her hand, hair in a bun, watching the sun rise before waking the kids. Did she replay those moments? Did she ask herself if one night was worth losing it all? Because she did lose it all. Her home. Her marriage. Her place in the kids' lives. Even the man she cheated with, the hotel manager, was fired before we ever got back the settlement. He didn't even last 2 weeks after I filed the complaint. Apparently, it wasn't the first time he crossed that line. He didn't reply to the legal notice. Didn't show his face again either. The kids are doing well. Leo asks fewer questions now. He just wants consistency, pancakes on Saturdays, help with math, someone to kick a soccer ball with in the yard. Mia still draws pictures that include her mom sometimes, but the frequency's fading. I don't correct her. I just nod and say, "That's nice, sweetheart," and hang them on the fridge like always. Our house is quiet, but never cold. There's laughter. Movement. Light. I made space in the garage for a small workshop and started building furniture again, something I used to do before the business took over my time. It helps. People ask if I've thought about dating. I haven't. Not really. I'm not bitter, just not interested in pretending. What I had, I gave fully. I'm not in a rush to hand that over again, not until I'm sure someone deserves it. I still have the bracelet I bought in town the day it happened, the one I meant to give Mia. I finally gave it to her last week. She wore it all day and didn't take it off for bed. I looked at her and saw something clear: I didn't lose a family. I saved one. She tried to throw it all away. I held on.